The list came out for the special session with no real surprises, but the week did have some interesting political twists, turns, and some backtracking, right? Let's get to the headlines from our panel, and we'll start first with Patrick Svitek with the Texas Tribune. Patrick, what's your headline?
Agenda.
Connie Sweeney with the Highlander. What's your headline?
Politicians show themselves out in a big way.
And Holly Hansen with the Texan News. What's your headline for the week?
All eyes on the Texas legislature and the next battle in the GOP civil war.
Now, the governor has issued his special session call. Lawmakers will return to Austin with a lot of animosity still remaining from the Paxton impeachment trial. As expected, school choice, education savings accounts topping the list. The border crisis also made it with some added flip-flopping from the Biden administration. Yes to the wall, no to the wall, but they definitely still want to sink the border buoys. Holly, you wrote about one of the side issues that may be overshadowing this special session that's coming. Lawmakers are still angry with Speaker Phelan, claiming now that the House parliamentarian is helping Democrats control the chamber, want an investigation. So do you think that we're going to see this special session, the first days at least, maybe become something like what we saw in Congress with trying to oust him?
I think that's a possibility. There are a couple of members, rattling their sabers about possibly trying to unseat the speaker in the same way they did in the U.S. House. However, it's a slightly more fraught path in the Texas House because of the rules. The speaker has the right to not recognize a member who may be making that motion. Under normal circumstances, 10 other members can overrule the speaker on that. But in this case, it will take 76 members of the House to actually overrule the speaker if he chooses not to recognize someone offering that. Sorry for the complicated explanation, but I know a lot of people are curious. As to the story you referenced, there are two camps of concern about Hugh Brady, the parliamentarian. On one side, there's a lot of respect for Hugh Brady having a lot of parliamentary knowledge, but there is a camp that is concerned that he is or was formerly the White House counsel under President Barack Obama. So a lot of conservatives are not too happy about that situation. But there are some in the Senate who are actually more concerned about the hiring of Hugh Brady's law firm, Brady Peavy. He's not really working with the firm since he was appointed House parliamentarian. He is one of two, but there are a lot of questions about, what they're doing and what happened at the end of the regular session, where we saw quite a number of bills taken down over technicalities through points of order. So some of these senators, Paul Bettencourt, Mays Middleton, and also Austin's Ellen Troxclair, have requested some documents from the city of Austin and also Harris County and other municipalities that have hired the firm. So we'll see what happens with that.
Speaker Phelan kind of punched back to the lieutenant governor, who has been throwing his own punches. Patrick, I can't see how the bad feelings over Speaker Phelan go to the back burner, right?
We'll see. I mean, I think that those tensions you're going to continue to see those tensions rear their head in this special session. Obviously before the impeachment trial, things weren't great between the lieutenant governor and the speaker. We saw that during their property tax deal battle, and the trial really ratcheted up those tensions, given that the House had overwhelmingly voted to impeach Paxton in May, and the Senate not only acquitted him by decisive margins on most of the articles, but you also saw the lieutenant governor end that trial with harsh criticism for the way that the House handled the process. So I think we're going to continue to see those tensions.
Well, the House managers certainly threw more gas on this House fire, dumping more documents from the Paxton impeachment case. Connie, that gamble by the House, the Hill Country Representative Andrew Muir, somewhat of a backlash lately, even from some of their own House managers didn't think that it was appropriate. So what are people saying over there in the Hill Country?
Rudy, the backlash is gaining steam in Andrew Muir's House District 53. And apparently what's at the core of it is a complaint that he allegedly violated the principles of the Republican Party. Now, so far, Bandera County and Real County took the steps to censure. And for now, closer to home, Llano County and Mason County appear to be holding steady. But if the state officials continue to put the heat on both Andrew Muir and Phelan, you may see that change.
Well, everybody's getting censured, right? You know, Patrick, the Texas Tribune had an interesting article about the Colony Ridge community. That's the area near Houston that some Republicans claim is a Texas sanctuary city, but the developer says nothing's really going on out there that's out of the ordinary. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick flying over the property, he seemed to indicate that he thinks it's a local issue. What kind of legislation could we see coming out of these hearings that the governor wants in the special?
That is a great question. We've seen some reports in conservative media that portrays this community as kind of a magnet for illegal immigration. I think that's one of the terms that one of the stories used. And we've seen, as you pointed out, state Republican leaders raise some concern. We did see Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick tour it by air, and he did talk about how there may need to be a stronger law enforcement presence there after speaking with the developer. But you're right, the developer has kind of fiercely pushed back on this idea that it's a haven for illegal immigration. He has invited all lawmakers to tour it. I believe that was on Thursday. And so it's a little unclear at this point what the exact legislation would be. And even if you look at the special session agenda item that Greg Abbott designated on this, it's pretty vague for now. It says any legislation regarded to, environmental or public safety concerns at communities like Colony Ridge. And so I think that as a legislative item is still very much TBD.
Holly, there's a lot of political money behind the people who are building Colony Ridge. So is this hearing just for show?
No, I don't think it's a show at all. We've been digging into some of the documentation surrounding the development, and it goes back to 2011. It looks like there are a lot of concerns outside of the public safety concerns, law enforcement related items. There's limited law enforcement available there, but there's also a huge environmental concern. It looks like the development does not have the adequate number of fire hydrants. It has improper drainage. There are only 2 retention basins for about a 30 square mile area of land. And the problem is that this is part of the San Jacinto River Basin, which is kind of an ecosystem that affects flooding, all the way from the Bryan College Station area all the way down into Houston and so forth. So there's a broader impact. So this is another aspect of that story. I think we're going to see more investigation of how this property was permitted. What has the county done if they exerted the proper oversight? There has been this idea that there may need to be a state conservatorship over the property to figure out what's going on and make sure that it's best for the people living there and the surrounding communities.
Connie, there's Colony Ridge type communities in the Hill Country here in central Austin. And, there's even a big fight about a new development that's, maybe holding up some water there in your neck of the woods. So, is this a Pandora box?
You're correct about that, Rudy. It's no secret that communities like Granite Shoals and Kingsland have been connected to issues with illegal immigration. Now, just recently, there were 2 Guatemalans who are accused of being in the country illegally, who are alleged to have hidden a body after an accident in Burnett County. And also, just recently, a woman from Burnett County was alleged to have been trying to traffic 2 to 3 minors, and she was caught at the border. So, bringing attention to Colony Ridge may have a ripple effect in some of our more local communities here.
Biden administration raised some eyebrows during the week. You had a high-level member of the administration saying, yeah, it's time to build the wall. Then the president said, whoa, no, it's not. A little bit of flip-flopping, backtracking. They still want to sink the border buoys. Holly, what's the reaction to all this in Houston? Do they even care?
Actually, I think that they do. So a woman by the name of Tamara Bell, she is a former leader, head of the Super Neighborhood Alliance here in Houston. It's a very powerful group. She is a Black female Democrat, big supporter of Sheila Jackson Lee. She's among the voices here in Houston that's been very vocal about the failure of the administration to secure the border. She's talked pretty frequently about, the drugs, the human trafficking, and the elements of crime that are freely moving across the border. We had that incident here in Harris County last year where a deputy constable was brutally murdered. Within a few hours, the police announced they knew who the suspect was, and they knew to look for him along the U.S.-Mexican border. So he was a person who was known to traverse back and forth across that border. And there are a number of Houstonians, members of President Biden's own party, who are very concerned and not very happy with the situation. And so I think, there is some receptiveness to the construction of the border wall, although I don't think anyone thinks that's going to be enough in this situation.
Right, Connie, does the flip, is this a jump the shark moment, or is this kind of like a pivotal moment of saying, we've got to do something?
Well, Rudy, folks here in the community see that Governor Abbott's actions in sending some of the illegal immigrants to the sanctuary cities in the Midwest and the Northeast have captured the attention of some of the mayors and the governors in those areas who are now reaching out to the White House.
Patrick, you agreed that this is something to stick even despite the flip-flopping?
Look, I think the Biden administration is in a tough spot. They are caught between a wing of the party that advocates a very compassionate approach toward immigration and an increasingly vocal wing of the party, mainly in these cities that are seeing an influx of migrants, at least in relative terms, an influx in their cities, that are telling the federal government, hey, this is getting real in our cities and we need help. We need you to take more aggressive action on the border. And so there's no doubt the Biden administration, I think, is feeling a little politically squeezed within their own party right now.
The state fair is underway in Dallas, and a lot of political leaders from across Texas are up in Dallas meeting and greeting. But I don't think that they're doing a lot of political fence mending, maybe more some political circling the wagons. Holly, what do you think about that?
Yes, the state fair and these events, they're big photo ops, and there'll be a lot of baby kissing and handshaking there. But as we've seen this morning, I think Patrick shared a statement from the lieutenant governor taking another shot at the speaker. There's still, a civil war brewing within the Republican Party and some contentiousness within the Democrat Party as well. We may see some photo ops, but it's getting pretty snarky out there. So I don't know if there'll be a whole lot of fence mending just because there's a state fair, which is fun.
A lot of corn dogs and excuses, Connie?
Well, it appears that it may put a pause on some of the political heat, and maybe folks will be a little more lighthearted, but only temporarily. Perhaps we'll see somebody eating or gobbling up, I guess, a chicken fried steak and some deep fried Snickers. But other than that, they'll be back at it right after the fair is over.
I say, is the fair just a pause, Patrick, and then the battle really starts on Monday?
Yeah, and this year it's more of a pause than usual because it's also a big fundraising weekend for a lot of lawmakers who come to the North Texas area because that's where everyone is at, including political donors. But it really is more of a pause than usual because they have this special session coming up, and that special session could go all the way until the candidate filing period opens in early November. It closes in early December. So, this is one of the last opportunities, I think, that these state lawmakers have to fundraise and kind of openly campaign before they have to get back to the Capitol for a new round of legislative combat.
All right, let's wrap up this week with one final word, and we'll start with Patrick. Patrick, what's your word for the week?
I realized I jumped the gun and said my final word during the headline of the week. I said agenda then. My headline would have been Greg Abbott releases special session agenda.
So we'll backdoor that and flip-flop. There's your flip-flop. Patrick does his own flip-flop. Connie, don't flip, don't flop. Give me your word.
I actually like that one, flip-flop. You took that from me, Rudy. That was my word.
Holly, wrap us up with the final word.
Tinderbox.
And that is enough said for this week in Texas politics.